What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, folks, I got a contradiction for you guys today, and I love it. And I don't understand it myself. And I've been hearing this for a little while. I've seen a few of the polls. That's what we're going over, by the way. Majorities back Trump on deportations, but oppose methods, so says a survey. Now, I love this because it just doesn't make any sense why we see some of those polls right now that are souring on Donald Trump for deportations specifically, right? When right before the election, 70% of the country was like, yes, get all the illegals out. What's fascinating is, okay, so you vote the guy in to get all the illegals out. When he starts doing that, all of a sudden you're like, oh, we don't like this anymore. Stop it. How much sense does that make? Right? I think what it is these polls aren't clear enough with their questions because they always ask ambiguous questions. They always ask, do you support something? Right? Well, what does support mean? What do you mean by that? It's like, it's weird, folks, how these polls are kind of laid out. The methodology, a lot of times is faulty, but some are pretty good, some are not. But anyway, I just find that fascinating that a lot of Americans were like, yes, get all the illegals out. When he starts doing it, all of a sudden they don't like the tactics. Well, there's not much to the tactics, by the way. There's not much else you can do to get illegals out. Like, I don't get that. I don't get it at all. It just flies right over my head. A majority of Americans in a new survey said they support President Trump's deportation agenda broadly, but not necessarily the methods used to enact it. The Reuters IPOS poll released Thursday found 61% of U.S. adults supporting deporting immigrants living in the country illegally. Come on, the Hill. Let's get it right. They're not immigrants. They're just absolutely not immigrants. See, that's already a manipulation right there in the poll. They ask, oh, do you want to get immigrants living in the country illegally? Well, there are no immigrants living in the country illegally. There's none, folks. There are people that are unauthorized. They're not supposed to be here, but that doesn't mean that they're an immigrant, right? Because it takes getting paperwork, going through the proper process to actually become an immigrant, right? Like I always use my analogy, just because you get in a car and take off going down the road does not mean you're a licensed driver, does it? No, it doesn't, folks. Once again, it's the same thing with this. Just because you come into a country doesn't mean that you're an immigrant, right? Even if you come in and start living and working and doing all the things, that doesn't mean that you're immigrated to this country. You're not an illegal immigrant. You're a criminal alien, a foreign element that is not supposed to be in the country. Like, and by the way, anyway, let's keep going. I'll get to that. I got thoughts on this, by the way. Broken down by party, 92% of Republicans, and which is weird. It should be 100% of Republicans. And 35% of Democrats supported Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration, the results show. That's fascinating. 35% of Democrats actually support it. That's weird. I figured that number would have been much lower. Just less than 40% said they support the administration's tactics to enforce Trump's agenda, while 58% said they said the opposite, according to the survey. Now, what I would like to ask these people is expound upon this a little bit, please. What about the tactics do you dislike? And I bet you, I can almost guarantee you, it would be all of the, the rubber bullets and the bear spray and the mace bombs and all that nonsense, all the fighting with protesters. I can guarantee you that's what it is. But folks, that has nothing to do with immigration enforcement. It's nothing to do with immigration enforcement. ICE is not a police force that goes around to quell riots or quell protests. That's not their job. This falls squarely on the local municipalities that should be there to assist ICE, but because of deranged Democrat policy, they are barred from doing so. So now ICE has to protect themselves So now they have the pepper balls and all the mace and bear spray and whatever it may be, all the riot, crowd control measures, if you will. They're having to implement all of this. And it doesn't look good for ICE. That takes away from doing their job. That means less criminal aliens deported from this country. Plus, then, not to mention all of the activist judges that are absolutely violating the Constitution, violating the law, interpreting certain things in ways that was never meant to be interpreted. It's like, I don't know, say somebody tells you that they want a cheeseburger and french fries for supper, so you interpret that as, well, they're hungry, so they'll eat anything. That's how a lot of these laws are being interpreted. They're just being interpreted way too broadly in some cases, and just completely out of context in others. But like, what about the tactics is wrong? Nothing. You go and kick in some doors when you have to. Would anybody oppose if, let's say for instance, we have a military base and somebody decides they're going to jump over the fence and they build a shack and go into that shack? Do you think that anybody would oppose the military kicking the door in to get the occupant of that shack out? Would anybody oppose that? No. Now you might start crying like, I don't know, what is it? The Fourth Amendment? You might start crying Fourth Amendment. But hang on just a second. That shack is unauthorized. That person is unauthorized. And they don't care about the Fourth Amendment at that point, folks. The Fourth Amendment can absolutely be suspended for exigent circumstances. Well, just so happens that people in the country illegally, that's an exigent circumstance. The whole thing, because they're not supposed to be here. And we got to get them out. So, like, I love the due process argument, folks. The due process. And you hear it from both sides, right? You got liberals over here screaming, well, they're not receiving their due process. And you got people on the right saying, well, they don't deserve due process. But that's just wrong on both sides. Absolutely wrong on both sides. Everybody deserves due process. The only thing is due process is different for different circumstances. Right? There's all kinds of due process, if you will. The due process for people not supposed to be in the country, if it's within 2 years, which, how do you prove you've been here longer, by the way? But anyway, if it's within 2 years, that process simply is to be picked up and detained by ICE, then expeditiously deported. That's it. Now, you can file some sort of habeas petition, then it's going to go to court. That's also a due process, but you have to get a lawyer and file that. Well, you know what? If they detain you and you don't have a chance to get a lawyer, bye, you're gone. If they are graceful enough to allow you a lawyer, then, hey, you've got more, your options expand a little bit, and you have the ability to actually file habeas or whatever it may be, and you can ask an immigration judge to allow you to stay, but your prospects are kind of dim. Really, really dim at that point. But anyway, that's the process they are due, and that's the process they are getting. If you're a criminal, right? If you have come into this country illegally and you commit a crime, there's nothing pretty much. You just get deported, and that's it. You don't really get a say. That's what the law says. But anyway, let's keep going. On the other side, 63% of Democrats in general said they do not support deporting migrants compared to 7% of Republicans. This is natural, folks, and I don't know why. Like, once again, I would also say that that's not who Trump is deporting. Trump is not deporting migrants at all. He hasn't deported a single migrant. Anybody that has been deported has either been a criminal alien or an illegal migrant. There is a difference, folks, and I always explain this. But a criminal alien is somebody that just came into the country illegally. An illegal migrant technically is somebody that migrated here through the proper channels, right? They got all their paperwork, they paid their dues or whatever, and they came in to migrate to this country, whether it's temporarily or long term, doesn't matter. And then they didn't finish that process, and they let their visa or green card or whatever it is, they let that expire, which you're not supposed to do. So then they became an illegal migrant. Yeah. In other words, that's another category of person that's not supposed to be here. Those people get more rights, if you will, than somebody that just comes across the border illegally. You don't get much rights if you just come across the border illegally. That's why it's insane that these Democrats actually advocate for these people to be here illegally in the country, because you don't get most of the rights that we get. You might think that the Constitution says every person, yeah, but that's not really what it says, is it? Right? There's a lot of things that go well beyond this too. Like, they want these people here illegally, and they want them to have a job and all this and blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? Having that job or whatever, you don't get the same benefits because you're going to get paid less. You don't get paid time off or anything like that. You don't get insurance. You don't get none of those things, folks. You don't have the same benefits as somebody who is authorized to be here. So why would Democrats want that for anybody? It doesn't make any sense. But point in case, that is never brought up. Never brought up to a Democrat. I wonder why. Why do Republicans not bring that up, like in debates or in speeches or anything like that? They never bring that fact up. It's insane. I mean, that pretty much throws away that argument just completely. You basically want second-class citizens. That's what you want, Democrats? That's what they're asking for. That is what 63% of Democrats want. It's insane. And 7% of Republicans. Why? The numbers come as the Trump administration faces heat over its use of force in immigration enforcement operations following the fatal shootings of U.S. citizen Alex Pereira and Renee Good by federal agents in Minneapolis last month. Well, you know what? They should not have injected themselves into lawful operations. Right? Once again, I'll break it down like this, folks. We have compassion for these people. Right? It's a tragedy. We don't want to see Americans killed. ICE needs to take the most amount of restraint that they possibly can, which, from what I've been seeing, they haven't been, folks. Sometimes some of these ICE agents, they get a little zealous, if you will, a little overzealous, and that they're kind of quick, a little bit too quick to bear spray or pepper ball or whatever it may be. It might be a little bit too quick to do that in some cases. But you take Renee Good. That was completely above board. She should not have been there. She should not have pressed the gas. None of those things. All of that was her own fault. Alex Pereira, that's a different case. We can break that one down. Folks, that one wasn't necessarily all Alex Pereira's fault. This is where I fall out on this. The agent, if that one agent that pulled the gun out from his waistband is the same agent that yelled, "Gun, gun, gun," he should be fired and he should be charged with something. I don't have a legal background enough to know what he should actually be charged with. But he should be charged with something, because that is what directly led to the death of Alex Pereira. If it were not for him pulling that gun out and yelling "gun, gun, gun," prompting a gunshot and then prompting the other agents to feel like their life was threatened, so they pull out their guns and blast, none of that would have happened, folks. Right? Whether that gun went off on accident, we don't know. Right? That was supposedly being investigated. We'll see. But if it went off on accident, I don't know what to say. I really don't. Because if it was an accidental discharge of that weapon, I don't see like any significant repercussions for that agent. If it was due to negligence in handling the weapon that it went off, then maybe we could have some sort of negligent manslaughter or something like that charge. And we'll see. I don't think he would be convicted, to be honest with you, but something of that nature, folks, because we need accountability, right? At least Americans need to see accountability. They need to know exactly what happened with that. We need accountability, folks. We can't be having situations like that happen again. We just can't. But 99.9% of all of the chaos around what ICE is doing does not have anything to do with immigration enforcement. And it has everything to do with insane leftists getting in the way of ICE, obstructing, impeding, and assaulting, tracking them down, all the things, right? It's truly insane. I mean, they're highly coordinated, highly organized. These people, like Alex Peretti, was on a shift. I understand why the administration called him a domestic terrorist. I get it. I understand why he was there and what he was doing. Because I look at context, folks. I look and see this man's actions in the weeks prior to what led up to, what was that, January 24th, I think? It doesn't say. I think it was the 24th, because Renee Good was on the 7th. I see what he was doing. Same thing with Renee Good. She was in that same boat, in that same group, that insurgent group. That's what I call them. But it's truly insane. Most of this is the fault of the protesters. I know a lot of people screaming victim blaming, right? But hey, that happens. That's a phrase for a reason. It just is. It's insane too. Funding for the Department of Homeland Security lapsed on February 14th as Democrats stand firm on their demands for reform within U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Roughly 60% of U.S. adults say ICE has gone too far during operations. Around 63% of Democrats also said they believe the agency should be abolished. Wow, 63% of Democrats think, yeah, we don't need immigration enforcement at all. We don't need to get these criminals out of here. Compared to 30% who disagreed, according to the poll. Senate Democrats earlier this week blocked another bill to reopen DHS, which includes immigration enforcement agencies, but also the Transportation Security Administration. I always have trouble saying Transportation Security Administration for some reason. U.S. Coast Guard and Federal Emergency Management Agency. Among their requests are unmasking agents and tightening warrant requirements during raids. A survey from NBC News Decision Desk earlier this month also found that 72% of Americans support either reforming ICE or shuttering the agency. That's insane to me. The Reuters iPulse poll was conducted from February 18th through the 23rd, featuring 4,368 people and a margin of 2 percentage points. It's insane, y'all. These people are insane out there. Like the polling class. Yeah, that's a thing, folks. The polling class in this country, the people that get polled. I think it doesn't accurately represent this nation, to be honest with you. I don't think it does. I think these are politicos that are deeply steeped into their politics. They're constantly in the polls. We get polled over and over and over again with the same people over and over and over again. It just is what it is. That's why you can't really fully trust the polls. I mean, you can get an idea, but, it is what it is. But, look, immigration enforcement, abolishing ICE, like, really? Like, what are you going to do about the criminals that come into this country? What are you going to do about those people? So you don't care that people just violate our sovereignty all over the place? I don't want to hear a single Democrat talk about territorial integrity. You have no say over what happens in Ukraine, because that's all that is. Russia's just illegally migrating into Ukraine. Make an argument against it. I dare you. But I think that's all I got. You guys let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Click the join button. Sign up and become a member. It's the best way to help this channel expand and grow, folks. And look, we got to pray for this nation, folks. We got to pray that those numbers can be lessened, if you will. Right? Look, I understand a lot of people have problems with ICE, but it's a necessary enforcement mechanism. It's in the Constitution. If you don't like it, change it. You know, lobby Congress to change it. That's what I would say. But I don't think you're ever going to be able to do that. Straight up. But we do need to pray for this nation, y'all. We need to pray for these Democrats, that they can have an awakening, a spiritual awakening to Christ. That's what we need, y'all. We really do need that. We're having a bit of a revival right now, and it's great. It's amazing. I love it. You're going to love it too. That's all you got to do. Go to Jesus. That's it. Ask him to come into your heart, forgive you of your sins. That's what we need to do, y'all. I do that on a daily basis. Straight up. But you guys try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.